All right, hello. How you guys doing out there? I saw that not too many people were doing screencasts, so I thought I'd take a shot at it. I'm Damon Morrison, and my endorsements are in SPED and ELA. And we're going to talk about a few different facets of that we've gone into in class. We start with from my metaphor for knowledge, which I picked was a detective, because we as SPED teachers are always figuring out ways to use content using inferences and make it more accessible and tangible for them to interpret and comprehend in an applicable manner. We use experiences and events to access all their senses or ways of learning new concepts. We in turn take all these clues as detectives and turn them into actual artifacts that can be verifiable, definitive, and cumulative. Thus, I believe it's like it's a hard knowledge in its essence, but it has to be grounded in a soft knowledge in order for it to be substantially hard knowledge. So you kind of need both. Using the detective as a metaphor, it's important to understand that that SPED is ingrained in applied knowledge because it must be practical and connected to content in real life. And thus, it would put in the knowledge in the C quadrant, but it would be in the upper right hand corner towards the center, just because I believe it gravitates kind of towards there. It's not solely in the C quadrant, but it can cross over a little bit. Next thing I would like to take a look at is also my metaphor teaching. For teaching would be a point guard on a basketball team. And I think about a point guard because point guard must distribute the ball, and you can use the ball as knowledge or content. They must lead the team as the general on the floor at all times. They orchestrate the offense to flow. The point guard always tosses the ball, or always passes the ball, but his job is to better all those around him so that they can score and put them into position to play better. So in a way, they're kind of like this orchestrator. They're not only a player, but they're a coach out there, making sure things are being done correctly. They're very vocal, and so in a way, that's kind of the way I see kind of teaching in a way. And another metaphor would be the point guard get assists because they help place the ball or knowledge or content in the hands of people so they can score easier, learn knowledge easier. And they create opportunities for people to shine. So point guards aren't necessarily have to be the stars of the team. They're enabling their students to be the stars, and that's kind of what a point guard does. Is you're put in position to be successful. And I like to say, like, just as a basketball team, they usually go as the point guard goes. So if they're not communicating well, if they're not doing their job in a way, then the team suffers, and you can see that. That's why it's very important to have a great point guard or teacher. And so, and I guess what I mean by that is, like, they empower the team, but they control, like, the ebb and flow of the game, how fast, how slow. They move people in correct positions. They're constantly thinking. They're able to adapt, and I think that's very important as a teacher, to be flexible to adapt, especially in a SPED environment with all the different disabilities and students that you have in a classroom. And they're able to score as well when they're needed. So it's not like you're simply sitting back and let everything happen passively, but they're able to put the ball in the hoop in a sense. And they facilitate communication between team and players, and that's kind of the idea of a teacher, I think. Not only are you dealing with students, but dealing with faculty and other teachers who are involved in that student's life, and parents, and you're very involved, I think, in that sense. And so also, I think this would fall under telling and controlling knowledge to students, but it also must prove to be transformative and transgressing, especially since for SPED students, because they're learning with a disability. You're teaching them how to utilize their other strengths, and teach them so that they're able to connect to the content in a way that allows them to access the areas that isn't very clear, so it has more clarity. We are constantly chunking, scaffolding material down into chunks, pacing, structuring it so that it is building upon foundational pieces one on top of each other. So you're kind of you're making sure the steps are followed so that they can get up that ladder to the roof, in a sense, so they can reach that ceiling. And that's kind of the way I see it. My metaphor for literacy would be, I kind of have a lot. I just couldn't pick one. I went with passcode, automatic door opener, Cracker Jack box decoder ring. I don't know if most people remember that. A padlock, the ones where you have to twist one way and then back the other way and the other. A huge keychain or key ring that has just all these different keys on it. A microphone, answer key to a maze, a VIP pass, nutcracker, that cracks nuts, a can opener, and an oxygen tank. And I kind of see all these things as kind of giving you access to things that if you weren't literate, you wouldn't. It's giving you these special powers in a way to be able to access the world around you. And so I kind of see that as that. These are kind of my metaphors for that. And so it gives you these opportunities to places that aren't available to you unless you are literate, and how important that is to be literate in the world. It's very hard to function, and so you're not confined in the world without all these constraints that create very difficult circumstances for people if they're not able to be literate. I think it allows SPED students to freely move up the social and creates financial mobility, so they gain access to the open stratification system. They'd be able to move up and down. I think SPED teacher, it would fall under as a SPED teacher as adaptation, due in part that essential aspects of living in school and beyond life, that you need these things, these tools, to not only in school but in life and beyond. I would also advocate for it being something similar to power, because this is what is most important in life. I think to be able to read and write, being able to fluently read and write is so immensely important to a person in this world. There's really a fine line of how far you can go without having these essential skills in the world, to be able to communicate in these ways, to be able to actively express oneself and understand the power that it is in being able to educate oneself about the world around them, and how vastly intricate it is to realize that the rights and opportunities entitled to people. And if you can't read and write, you are being left behind in a sense. You're not afforded these opportunities where other people will. So it's very important for literacy. And as far as my metaphor for humanities article, it would be a clenched fist, like that, for sure. Definitely a clenched fist. This is because it falls under hard applied knowledge that is focused on being proactively involved in the idea that teaching and learning is and should be ultimately transformative in its purpose, and it should also be adaptive and seen as power. It should be a power, and that's the way I kind of saw it in the article. It takes the idea of learning out of the textbooks and into the hands and the trenches of actuality, shows that there's a real purpose and an interactive means to learning, not simply memorizing and regurgitating information, as this is meant to be impactful and progressive in its intent to empower students, learning in a fashion that calls upon students to be engaged and involved in the creation and in mobilization of ideas into actions. It calls upon students to critically think and pushes the limits and the boundaries and ideals for what the intent of learning is supposed to do and mean for accomplishing and achieving. So I think this is very important in this article. It points that out. The two different kind of contrasting stories in there. And this pretty much summarizes my ideas on the 4 topics. So I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll see you in class soon. Thank you. Bye.